Hello there, thank you for tuning in. I'm Ashna Harjani, engineer. You're watching Mirror Now. First up, some breaking news that's coming in. All right, the big breaking news coming in. The NCB fails to prove superstar Shah Rukh Khan's son Aryan Khan's culpability in the Mumbai cruise drugs case. The central agency gives a clean chit to Aryan Khan. Big relief for Shah Rukh Khan's son Aryan Khan. All right, my colleague Nikunj is joining us live on the broadcast. Nikunj, big relief for Aryan Khan.
Well, absolutely a big relief for Mr. Aryan Khan, who, as on today, quite clearly, it is being borne out by the final charge sheet that has been filed, was wrongly confined, illegally arrested, many would say, and put behind the bars for close to a month. And therefore, it's a big relief, not only for him, but also for his family members, and also for all other individuals who, at many times tend to suffer from the excesses of the investigating agencies, as many neutral observers will call it. I believe Mr. Majeed Memon has joined us at this point in time, noted criminal lawyer. Mr. Memon, what do you make out of this? What do you make out of this admission by the Narcotics Control Bureau, country's premier investigating agency when it comes to drug and law enforcement, which now says that it had arrested Mr. Aryan Khan and certain other individuals for close to a month, put them behind bars, but is now short on proof, cannot file a charge sheet against them. It almost appears to be a mockery of the process. Many neutral observers will see it like that.
You see, regrettably, I must tell you as a criminal law practitioner that these days there is a lot of noise of abuse by the investigating agencies of jumping into encroachment of personal liberties of citizens for one reason or the other, sometimes even on some ill-motivated ideas. Politically and personal vengeance, etc., arrests are being affected, people are made to suffer, they remain in custody for a long time. Now, that is not the case in Aryan's case, but let me tell you, as far as Aryan's case is concerned, this young boy had to remain in custody for as many as 26 days in lockup, in a great humiliation. It was a great psychological, physical, reputational, loss to not only this young boy, his celebrity father and all their well-wishers. And was it justified? Now, today, when the NCB officer comes in the court and says that we are discharging him for want of evidence, that would suggest that there is no evidence to prosecute him. Now, the question that arises is that has the evidence been found to be absent today for the first time? Did the evidence exist on the day when you arrested him? You exercise your power to arrest him.
Mr. Memon, I'll just intervene. I will just ask you a supplementary question there. That's a very valid question you ask. Did the evidence exist on the day that you arrested the individual? Now, arrest in the law enforcement processes should ideally be, as the criminal jurisprudence stands, the ultimate step. Arrest cannot be the beginning of the process, because if you start effecting arrests right in the very beginning, when you are not even sure of your evidence, then the entire criminal jurisprudence is appended on its head. So this clearly would appear to many as the abuse of the process of law.
Absolutely. This is exactly what I want to tell you in better words. Let me explain to your viewers. You see, Supreme Court has been repeatedly warning all the officers who are enjoying the powers under the law to encroach upon personal liberty without court's order, that is arrest without warrant. Please don't consider arrest as the first step for investigation. Precisely what you said is true in Aryan's case. They ought to have deferred Aryan's arrest. They ought to have proceeded to collect evidence against him and could have landed on this day by finding no evidence against him, and there was no need to arrest him at all. But then they chose to exercise their power of arrest, which is very drastic, which is very physically consequential, upon the citizen whose life is destroyed. Some people I have come across in my career of criminal practice that a person who was wrongly arrested committed suicide because his wife also felt that how could
Mr. Memon, that brings me to another point. You see, if somebody is a routine offender, if somebody is a habitual offender, if somebody has a criminal past, if somebody has that kind of antecedents, many, particularly on the law enforcement side, would say that his arrest is required and justified. But here is a young man who has no criminal background. Here is a young man who has never had any previous brush with the law, almost a juvenile in conflict with the law. And the Narcotics Control Bureau, which is not the local police, which in many cases is sort of, to say, trigger happy, goes ahead and arrests him. And then an entire controversy surrounds his arrest. Do you think that at this moment, when the Narcotics Control Bureau has failed to produce any proof in a court of law, legitimate questions can be raised about the entire action that the Narcotics Control Bureau took from day one? It looks like we have lost the link with Mr. Memon. Ashna, the fact that I was trying to discuss with Mr. Memon was that a very large section of the public opinion and people who have experience of the criminal jurisprudence in this country would go ahead and say that this is not only the process, an abuse of the process of law, but this is also something that could have been avoided right from the word go, because this young man had no criminal antecedents. This young man had no previous brush with the law. Mr. Memon, sorry, unfortunately we lost you there. But I was coming to the fact.
Yeah. Please let me complete.
Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah. Please.
See, it is not necessary in any criminal investigation, mind you. First proposition, remember that. Arrest is not a part of punishment. Arrest is not punitive. These are the concepts which must be understood. Arrest is only to facilitate the investigating team to carry further the process of collection of evidence. Arrest should never be made for the purpose of humiliating a person. Arrest should never be made under assumption that it's a part of punishment. People who are on bail throughout are convicted ultimately in the trial, or conversely, the people who have denied bail throughout for years are found not guilty and acquitted. Therefore, the result of a criminal trial has anything to do with the arrest or detention in custody. This must be remembered. And why the investigating officers don't remember this guideline, this mandate of Supreme Court, this mandate of majesty of law, that you are not supposed to use your power of arrest at the drop of the hat. Arrest is the last step. Without arrest, you cannot manage the investigation, then you only arrest. But unfortunately, it is exactly the reverse. The police officers intimidate people for that power of arrest. The police officers harass the people, cause problems to the people in the name of power to arrest. This must go. And if it goes, I think it will change the entire outlook of our criminal justice system, which is unfortunately not very happy.
Mr. Memon, I began by saying that, but we haven't yet heard the Narcotics Control Bureau. Their Director General says that he will address the press at around 3 p.m. Quite clearly, he has something to say. Quite clearly, they may come up with the fact that, though there was evidence that existed, it was not prosecutable evidence.
At 3 p.m., the NCB may come forward with some evidence, reasonable evidence also, reasonable reason also for their having acted like this. We are not arguing only for Aryan. I am saying it for 130 crore Indian nationals who are subject to law, who are subject to this kind of intimidatory threat of police officers belonging to various departments, threatening them of arrest. Why not? The courts also become conscious of the fact that the power of arrest has been abused day in and day out. In Aryan's is an illustration which we have to now today discuss this issue. Every case, the arrest has to be avoided. And if a wrong arrest is made, provision of law under Article 22, subclause 2 or 167 CRPC, 57 CRPC suggests that within 24 hours of executive arrest by a policeman, howsoever powerful that policeman may be, has to be judicially scrutinized by a judicial officer within 24 hours. What is the purpose of that? And those judicial officers must also not shut their eyes and grant remand only on the asking by the police officers. They also must raise question to the officer, could you not have deferred arrest in this investigation? But unfortunately, that's not happening. If this is cured, I'm telling you, 50% or more of the malady in our criminal justice system would be wiped off.
Well, Mr. Memon, coming back to the present case, coming back to the explicit case of Mr. Aryan Khan, where the charge sheet has not been filed now, and where quite clearly they are short on proof, the Narcotics Control Bureau. What do you think went wrong? I mean, there are 6 people who have been let off. Certain others have been charge sheeted. To begin with, many people had said that if there was a party, and even if there were consumption of drugs, recreational drugs, as many say, it was probably not either the mandate of the Narcotics Control Bureau, or that mandate was exercised with an excessive vigor. And therefore, what happened right from the word go in terms of arrest in terms of a raid or arrest at a particular place of party, and then it finally resulted in multiple arrests, and now today it also results in multiple clean chits, could have completely been avoided. Ashna, again, looks like we have having some problem with the link that with Mr. Memon. Right. However, the discussion that we were having was that probably the entire search and the subsequent criminal action at this so-called party or the party spot could have been balanced or could have been avoided in the excessive vigor that the Narcotics Control Bureau applied to this entire situation. Ashna.
Right, Nikunj. Very important points being raised, especially about the power of arrest as far as this particular case is concerned. Thank you, Nikunj, for joining us on the broadcast. And that is the big breaking news that we are getting to you at this point in time. The NCP has told the court that there is... All right, my colleague, senior colleague Nikunj is joining us on the broadcast for more on this. Right, Nikunj, back to you, Nikunj.
Well, yes, I think, the issue with Mr. Memon's link is now sorted. Mr. Memon, thank you very much for being with us. I was coming to the explicit case of Mr. Aryan Khan. Mr. Aryan Khan, as I was saying that, many people actually, right from the word go, many neutral commentators, observers had said that the entire action of the Narcotics Control Bureau, which actually has the mandate of working against the transcontinental drug syndicates based on intelligence-based operations and coordinating such big operations amongst the state, was probably excessive. Probably to begin with, an action against a party should not have been undertaken, and if at all it was required, probably that job should have been left to the local police.
Now, see, one important question arises for your benefit, for the benefit of viewers. In case of Aryan Khan, the NCB is under a duty to convince the court and the people of this country the justification for arrest. That is A, but the duty does not end there. After you arrested him, he had to languish in custody for 26 days because you opposed his release on bail tooth and nail, saying that he is accused of serious crime and he cannot get bail because NDPS law, the rule is custody and exception is bail. And therefore, you took advantage and made the young man suffer for 26 days. What were you doing for 26 days? Why did it take you more than 26 days to come to this final conclusion that this man is not involved in the crime and no case is substantiated against him? Why so many months after you are saying today that, well, there's no evidence against him and therefore we are asking for discharge? These are questions which are disturbing, and I'm not attributing any malice to NCB officers, but NCB officers will have to be careful. You see, the stringent and powerful law which you are using as an instrument should not be vulnerable to misuse, which unfortunately appears to have been in the case of Aryan Khan. It should not send a wrong message that you are equipped with adequate power. Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. If you are given power of arrest with bail as exception, then you have to be extra cautious in encroaching upon personal liberty of any citizen.
Mr. Memon, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for putting it in perspective for our viewers. As always, very well said.